Hey, welcome back to Scrap Cooking. It's so nice to see you guys again. I'm Harriet Clooney, and this is the show where we want to teach you how to use everything you already have in your kitchen to minimize waste and stretch your dollar. And on today's show, we're going to show you how to make kale hummus with the stems, which you probably didn't think was possible, but it is, and it's delicious. When I get my kale home from the grocery store, I actually like to take the little, usually twist tie or elastic off of it because it constricts the flow of water from the bottom, and it will turn it faster, so it won't be as good. So, and then I like to put it in a container, usually something tall like this sort of deli container with a little bit of water, and then I put a bag on its head. But there's a reason for that. It's so that it keeps in the moisture, because really your refrigerator is a big dehydrator. So if you ever notice that your carrots get kind of floppy, it's because the fridge is sort of extracting all the water from it. So in order to keep our kale from wilting, we put the bag on top of its head, and that sort of maintains the moisture level inside. So all that water that it's getting at the bottom there, it's not just sort of going out into the fridge and wilting your kale. So this is how I keep my kale in the fridge to keep it nice and keep it a lot longer than just in a bag in the fridge without any water. So now that you know that, I'm gonna take its bag off its head and shake some of the water off. Now I'm gonna strip the kale off the stem just using my fingers. Just go, woo! And these guys, I'm just gonna make a big pile of them. I'm just gonna do them all. But if you weren't using every single one of them, what you could do is when we get the stems nice and clean and chopped up, I make a little container. Tried to escape. I try to put it in a little container and keep it in the freezer. And just add to it as I'm going, so that when I actually have a little container full, then I can make the hummus. So you don't have to do it all at once. You can kind of keep a little stockpile going. Okay, so we are left with the kale stems, and yeah, they're nice and fibrous. I'm also going to give them a wash. From having been in the store, you can kind of see the edge. So we're just going to cut that off, and that is the only part that's going to go in the compost. Just that. After that, we are going to chop up the kale stems, not too small, because they will disintegrate, and not too big, because they'll take a while to cook. Just sort of like the size of a pea. Going in the blender. So again, like the pea stew, doesn't have to be perfect or pretty. All right, so we've got that hanging out. I'm gonna put it in a bowl just off to the side. And I'm gonna turn my pot of water just sort of 3/4 full, and this burner likes to give me some grief. Woo! All right, and I'm gonna add, if I can find it, there it is. Just gonna add a pinch of salt. A good pinch. Chef pinch. We're gonna get that boiling, and then we're gonna be blanching the stems. And that's gonna soften it, because the stems are quite fibrous. So if we just put it in the blender right now, it would kind of taste chalky, which is gross, in my opinion. And so this way we're gonna be using the stems like the chickpeas. So there's gonna be no legumes in it. It's just gonna be the stems of the kale and some tahini, lemon, garlic. And speaking of garlic, we're gonna take our garlic bulb because we are gonna do two things with the garlic. We're gonna confit some of the bulbs, just give it a little bit of sweetness, and we're gonna use some of them raw, like get that good hummus garlic. So I just cut the tops off. I'm gonna take them off the bottom. All these little garlic tops, we're gonna keep them. And since we have a nice clean garlic, we're also gonna keep the peels. We're just gonna have a running little container of them that I just keep in the freezer. And I'll show you what to do with them another time. So all this stuff I'm gonna keep. Now, this is the fun part. Take two bowls of similar size, and you can put the garlic with its tops and bottoms off in a bowl. We're gonna put top on, and then we're gonna shape it. And it will, maybe not that one, usually helps it come off. This garlic is being particularly stubborn. All right, so we've got our nice peeled garlic, and I'm gonna pick one of these tiny ones, put it over there with that. And all the rest of it, we're gonna put in this little pot, the smallest pot you got, and we are gonna fill it up with a neutral oil. I mean, you could use olive oil as well, but I find the neutral oil, you really get the flavor dominates. And we're just gonna fill it until it's sort of just covered, because the oil is gonna expand a little bit as it gets hot. So we've got this, it's just covered, it's not a lot. And then we're just gonna put it on the stove. And gonna turn it on. But we're gonna turn it quite low, sort of on a home stove. With an electric stove, you probably want it on low, but on a gas range, you probably medium low. And then we're just gonna let that go, and we'll come back to it in a bit. Okay, so we've got our garlic going, and if it's browning just like that, it's probably just a little bit hot. So we're just gonna turn it down. We don't necessarily want it to brown gently. We don't want to fry it, we just want to soften it. So it's a bit hot, so I turned it down. So we'll let that go, and now our water's boiling, and we've got our kale stems, and I'm gonna add them into the pot. And we're gonna let it hang out for longer than you would if you were blanching maybe beans or another vegetable like that, because the idea is that we actually want them all the way soft. We don't want to keep that nice crunch that you get when you're blanching beans or peas or something like that. So it's okay to kind of just like walk away for a second. So while that's going, we're gonna chop up our garlic. Now we don't have a huge amount of stems, so this is probably a lot of garlic for that, but I'm gonna chop it up anyway. Our garlic's almost done. That's going. We're gonna take our lemon and we're gonna zest it and juice it. So, going from top to bottom really gently. Take all that lovely zest off that's full of the oil that's got all the lemon flavor in it, which is what we want. And the white part is bitter, so we don't want that, but you can use it for things. So with your lemon juicer, it could just be a reamer, the little wooden guy too. We're gonna cut it in half, and we're gonna juice it. Now, you can kind of see that this is like a little cup. So a friend of mine cuts off the little bottom, puts these guys in her freezer, and then we'll use them as a little shot glass for lemon drop. So put a little bit of sugar on it and fill it with chilled vodka, and then bottoms up. And then you use it. Another use that you could use it for, which perhaps later we'll do, is you can also dehydrate it and make vitamin C powder out of it, which is pretty cool. So this pulpy stuff, that can go in the compost, or, I mean, you could also throw it in your smoothie. All sorts of stuff. I actually don't mind. So long as there's no seeds in there, you can just put that in there. Let's see. Oh, yeah. This guy's going to be a bit hot, so I'm just going to take one. Oh, yeah. That's good. Squishy, so we'll take those out of the oil. So I'm going to put my lovely roasted garlic in with my lemon juice for now. And I think our kale stems are ready. Woohoo! So it takes a little bit, like they take about 10 minutes. Depends on how old the stems are. So if it's like a newer part of the plant, like some kale will have been cut down and regrow and cut down and regrow. And the more you cut it down and regrow, the more fibrous the stems are going to be and the wider they are. So if it's sort of in the new growth stage, they'll be a lot softer. So they won't take as long. But these ones were quite fibrous. So they're nice and soft. They squish. That's what we want. Be careful, it's hot. So we're going to take them all out. I've got them on a sheet pan here to spread them out, cool them down. Gonna go over here to our nice friend, the blender. We're gonna put the garlic and lemon juice. I'm gonna put about half of that garlic in it because you never know sometimes with garlic how pungent it is. So if we feel like it needs more garlic, we can add it in later. And then I'm also going to use some tahini, which is sesame paste, which you can often find in a Middle Eastern grocery store or in a health food store. And it's just ground up sesame seeds. And often the oil will separate to the top. So we want to make sure we give it a really good mix. So that when it's uniform the whole way you go through the jar or the container of it, because it'll be really thin at the top and super oily and then really thick and hard to use at the bottom if you don't give it a good stir. So we're gonna add about a tablespoon in there. So got our kale stems, we're gonna get them in there. Good old chef pinch of salt in there. And we're gonna add just about a tablespoon of olive oil. And then we're gonna cover it and start on low. We're gonna use a little bit of the garlic oil as well, now that it's cooled down. All right, let's take a look. Oh yeah, that looks good. And it looks a little, you can tell it's just a little bit warm. The kale stems weren't completely cold and the garlic oil was a little warm as well. So it will look a little bit thinner than a traditional hummus, but once it's in the fridge and cools down, it's gonna firm up. Give it a taste. Yum. It's a little bit on the tart side. So I'm actually going to get out some honey. Teaspoon of honey, just to sweeten it up a little bit more and give it a nice little mix. The nice part about the hummus is that you really don't taste kale. Like it just tastes like hummus, which I like. And your kids probably will too. So don't tell them that it's kale hummus. All right, try that now. Oh yeah. Before you put it in the fridge, good idea to give it a little, get the air bubbles out of it. And there, we've got a beautiful kale hummus that we can have with pita or with vegetables or with crackers, whatever you want. Thanks for watching our kale hummus episode. Don't forget to tune in to our YouTube channel, Scrap Cooking, and don't throw out flavor.